It's your smell. What the bird is barbecuing.
G'day jabronis, it is TheVerd back with you again, and it's time, people. It's been a long time in the making, but your Tampa Bay Frogadiers, that's right, I got a shirt, bitches. We're back for Season 2 of the PMC. I'm really excited for this because I do enjoy the PMC. Sure, you know, I've been doing a lot of other leagues lately, but this has been one of the bigger leagues that I've been a part of, and I'm always really excited to take part in it. And we've just, like, as I'm doing this video, literally just completed the draft. And so what I wanted to do for you guys, god damn it, don't die. What I wanted to do for you guys was I wanted to kind of talk about all the picks I made and kind of give you a brief lesson, guys, in basically what you can do when you get sniped, because you're gonna see in the way that I talk about a lot of my picks that I get sniped a lot. From my initial plan, I get sniped a fair bit, but I feel that by changing my strategy halfway through and, you know, going with different picks, I was actually able to create a team that may not have been as good on paper as the initial one I planned, but I still feel like this one is incredibly strong for me in this format. So the way that I'm going to do this, guys, is I'm actually going to be talking about each pick that I didn't order. I'm not going to talk about my top tier picks and then my low tier picks, because I'd rather explain my thought process with every pick that I did, and explaining why I took them at certain times. So bear with me, there is a lot to discuss, so strap yourselves in, get yourselves a hot chocolate, get in your dressing gown, whatever you want to do, get comfortable, because it's time to discuss. So first and foremost, this draft began at about 3 AM my time, and I was like, and I had, I think it was 7th or 8th pick out of 16 people, so I was pretty much smack bang right in the middle, which is cool. It's not bad, because, like, you're not waiting forever on the wheel picks, but it's also like you're kind of never really, you're always waiting a long time between picks still, and it's okay. I didn't mind it. I had a game plan going into it. The first pick that I wanted was actually something that I believed going into this draft was tier 3, but the problem was, because it was very early in the morning when I made my first pick, I just assumed this thing was still in tier 3, only to find out, to my horror, that it was actually in tier 2. And I had chosen it as my first pick, and there was no way to turn back. And so I was kind of like, shit. But that being said, I do feel this is still a very, very strong opening pick for a draft. And, well, I mean, not really opening pick, but you have to understand, I chose this thing because for a solid month and a bit, it was tier 3. And it was only like a week before the draft, apparently, that it had been changed. So yeah, it's bad on my part that I didn't check, but we weren't really notified of it either, so it's like, you know, it happened. So the first pick, fully typed up. The other thing I need to think of while I'm doing this, actually, is I need to think of nicknames for each of my Pokemon. I'm not going to do nicknames for any of these guys straight away. Probably when I go into a bit more discussion, I'll probably announce it on Twitter or do a video about it. But for now, I'm just going to do the normal Pokemon names. I do have some cool nicknames in mind for some of them, but I'm not going to get into them now. I'm just going to talk about the Pokemon in general. So my first overall pick, the Tampa Bay Frogadiers. Okay, so also, just for people who don't know, I did not franchise Kieran Black. Now, a lot of people were a bit iffy about this. The main reason, there are a few reasons why I didn't do this. So the main reason was because Kieran Black is a fantastic Pokemon in the format. I just felt that these are the kind of leagues where I'm trying to really show myself as a battler to a lot of people, and I don't want to be that kind of guy that just franchises picks. Don't get me wrong, I think Kieran Black is phenomenal in the format. I just wanted to kind of stretch myself out and show that I can be versatile with a lot of different Pokemon and not just be, you know, a bit of a one-trick pony with one thing. So I really wanted to try and pick a very diverse draft, and actually I feel like I've done that with my draft this season, because I believe I didn't use any of these Pokemon in my previous team of the PMC, so I'm really excited with that. That's really cool for me. But kicking things off, as I said, my first pick of the overall draft was Florges. So yeah, it was initially tier 3 for a while, and unfortunately went back up to tier 2, which kind of sucked because it already ruined a bit of my drafting plan. It was like, shit, okay, I basically perfectly set up my points with Florges so that, you know, I could make this work, and now it wasn't making it work. But then I realized I could switch a few things around, and it would still be cool. Florges itself is a fantastic fairy type. In this, in the draft format, fairies are a very rare commodity. There's not a whole lot of very good ones, especially when it comes to wish-passing fairies. I think the only really solid ones that you'll find are Florges, Sylveon, Clefable, Aromatisse, I guess, and Mega Ordino. Probably the 5 best fairy wish-passers. I think there are, I mean, Mega Gardevoir, I guess also. I guess Mega Gardevoir is better than Mega Ordino in that sense, because Mega Ordino's trash, so chuck in Mega Gardevoir there. But the rest, you know, regular Gardevoir isn't that great at wish passing, not as good as its Mega form and, you know, the others, but I just feel that Florges was a fantastic cleric for my team. The fact that it also has Synthesis now means I'm not relying on Wish Protect. I definitely don't need to have it as a Wish Passer all the time. It can be a solo mon itself with a Calm Mind being great. Actually has a fantastic special attack stat, which means I can be very aggressive with Florges. It's not just designed to be a wall for me, it is also a fantastic special attack. It has some decent coverage moves, and one of the big things that you'll see later on in this draft is I actually took away one of Florges' biggest walls in the format and brought it to my team instead, so that was really helpful. But I feel that Florges is still a very solid first pick. I mean, Clefable had already been taken, Mega Gardevoir had already been taken, so at that point I could have taken Sylveon, but the thing is I had a really different kind of game plan going into this, and as I said, I believed that at the time Florges was incredibly budget. As it turned out, it wasn't, which is unfortunate, but I'm still really happy with Florges. As you can see, I should have like a little cool little animation for this draft, but Florges has fantastic stats. Like, sure, its defense isn't that great, but I'm not designing this as a main defensive thing. Its special defense is phenomenal, and its special attack is really one of the big things that drew me to it as well, is that, you know, compared to Aromatisse or something, it has a lot of power that it can hit behind, and it's not just all about wish passing and being a cleric. It can be a very aggressive Pokemon. That's how I hope to use Florges this season. Now, this is where the first snipe occurs. There's going to be a few snipes, and it basically changes a lot of my draft. But basically, oh, I turned my beanie the wrong way. The first snipe that occurs was basically from. I'm sorry, this is really frustrating me. Go that way. And straighten. Good shit. Sorry, I'm a perfectionist. Next pick I really wanted was Reuniclus because it was a cheap, good, bulky psychic. Can't really go wrong with it. It's fantastic. Unfortunately, it was sniped from me in the second round. It was the first overall pick of the second round by Aki. Can't really blame him for that. It's a very, very good Pokemon. Didn't expect it to really go that early, but then again, it's just incredible in this format and incredibly budget. I think after this season with Aki using it, I can see it going up to tier 2, but we'll have to wait and see. So I was kind of in a mad dash thinking, okay, what can I do? What can I get? And I had a couple of options. In this league, they actually have allowed Mega Latias, and I was thinking, damn, a core of like Mega Latias and Florges would be pretty amazing. But I decided against that because my main actual idea was that I was going to go with a core of Florges. What was the dragon type I was initially going to get? Florges, Dragonite, and Mega Aggron. That was what I really wanted. I was like, oh, this is fine, I can just, you know, get other stuff early on, because Dragonite didn't get drafted at all last season, it would be fine. I would just go with the next best thing to Reuniclus, which was my second pick overall, and that was Cresselia. Now, Cresselia, there's not a... my first two picks are bulky as shit. I know, it's I'm gonna be like... I look like I'm going to be that guy, but I'm not, because the thing is, Cresselia, yeah, it's incredibly bulky, but it has a lot of other really fantastic capabilities for my team. It has the Lunar Dance, which is phenomenal for my team, being able to basically fully heal up something on my team. It's great, especially with Trick Room, being able to pass that. Could be really cool, but also just the array of moves that Cresselia gets that a lot of people don't realize is amazing. It's not just about, you know, setting up Calm Minds and then trying to sweep your opponent. There's a lot of other things about Cresselia. One of the big things about it is its status moves. Things like Thunder Wave, which can be really crucial because a lot of Pokemon might be scared to set up a sub on Cresselia due to the fact that it can just then start setting up Calm Minds, and if you're not a physical attacker, you could be in a bit of trouble. So I think having this array of moves is really, really nice on Cresselia. I do really like it, and I'm very excited to use Cresselia this season. I think really because I've never actually used it in a draft-based format before, and already looking at a lot of matchups that Cresselia goes up against with my opponents coming up this season, I'm really excited to use this thing. It's very, very hard to deal with. Probably should be tier 1, but is tier 2. So in that sense, although I went a bit too high with Florges, I kind of went a bit low with Cresselia. So it's not too big of a deal for me. Now, going into my next pick, at this point in time, Dragonite had already been sniped. Again, a second round pick. I did not see it coming, just came out of nowhere, and I'm like, okay, things are seriously crumbling around me here. I need to kind of regroup, figure out what I'm going to do. Because my initial plan was actually to have my tier 1 choice be Superior, which funnily enough actually lasted until the end. Nobody would have picked it, so I was actually saving that to be my final pick because I knew nobody was probably going to pick it. But when it came back around to me in round 3, there was a different grass type that was still chilling around. Other grass types were picked before it, but this one's still chilled around. I know how good this thing is in the format. I've used it a million times on the ladder. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I never get a chance to use this thing in draft-based formatting. I'm going to give it a shot now. My team's already bulky, but let's just chuck in a bit of extra bulk. So I decided to pick up Tangrowth. So Tangrowth, I feel, is possibly one of the most budget picks in a draft-based format. Reuniclus is up there. Tangrowth is there too. Tangrowth functions incredibly well in OU, even though it's an RU mon and has actually not moved out of RU, hasn't even been upgraded to UU at all, which again baffles me. It is incredibly cheap and incredibly versatile for what it can do. The fact that it's not just a fantastic defensive Pokemon, but with its HP investment it can run a really solid Assault Vest set. With Regenerator it can just heal for days, while also having like 100 base attack as well as 125 special attack. Like, this thing hits like an absolute truck, and I think that's the really good thing about it. My team right now, my focus was that I wasn't going to go with like out and out passive walls like your Chanseys and whatnot. I basically wanted to pick up Pokemon that could not only be really solid defensively, but also hit really hard on the offensive side, and I feel my first few picks have done that. Tangrowth, though, the amount of moves that this thing can get is insane. I already, again, like I said, I think about some opponents that I'm going to go up against, and definitely there are some really cool options for Tangrowth against them. I feel that it's not really underrated because it gets picked very early. I just did not expect it to get to me by there, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna take the chance and take it and see what happens. And I did, and then I realized, okay, my draft is definitely going to be changing now, and I have to kind of think it through. I was still keen on Mega Aggron, and then it kind of dawned on me like, okay, my next pick was between basically Arcanine and Hitmontop. And what made this decision really easy was J-Specs taking Arcanine. So Arcanine was gone, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to take Tangrowth there. And when it came back up to me, I was like, okay, I really need to think of a new fire type to pick up, because initially I was going to take Arcanine because Arcanine's amazing in this format. And things that were still available were things like Emboar, Infernape at this stage, but I didn't want them because there was a certain fighting type I wanted to take, and I actually took this fighting type 4th pick. The reason I did this was because the way that these snipes were going, this was one of those kind of picks that I really wanted to nail down on my team, because it's a really important pick for my team. The roles that this thing can fulfill on my team are really, really important, and so I wanted to snaffle him up as soon as I could. So with my 4th overall pick of the draft, I actually decided to go with Hitmontop. Now, Hitmontop, I feel a lot of people give it a bad rap, saying that it's very, passive, and although it can, spin, it just loses to a lot of ghost types, and so it's not really that useful. I tend to disagree. One of the big things I really like about Hitmontop as a spinner, and the Hitmons in general when it comes to spinning, is one, I'm not going to be facing Sharpedo at all during the normal season, which is cool because he has a Mega Sableye. And the reason for that is because Hitmontop gets a move called Foresight. Now, if you don't know what Foresight is, guys, basically it is a move that allows you to identify your opponent and then lets you hit them, if they're a Ghost type, with Fighting type moves. So basically what that means is that if I go up against, say, a Kofgrigus, I can go for Foresight against it and be able to get off my Rapid Spin, meaning there is no successful way for my opponent to potentially spin block me, which is really, really important if I feel like I really need to get rid of hazards. It's also just a fantastic bulky mon in general, but also a really strong attacker in general. It gives me a really solid priority option, and the other big thing it gives my team is Intimidate. Intimidate is so crucial. It can really dent a lot of very strong physical attackers, and with a lot of my opponents that I have coming up in this in my division, I definitely need Hitmontop to be putting in a lot of work against them. So it's not just acting as, you know, the classic spinner role. It has a lot of other purposes, a lot of other roles it has to fulfill for my team, and I feel that it's versatile enough to do that. I think that the Assault Vest set is very underrated. You know how much I love my Assault Vests. And I feel there's a lot of other options that I haven't really, you know, I really want to tap into Hitmontop more, because I feel it's very underrated. It's still down in tier 4. I feel like it could actually be tier 3, and I kind of want to prove why this season. But moving on from there, I was feeling pretty good with my draft so far. It was pretty bulky, and I thought to myself, okay, I need to start getting some hazards. Because I had Hitmontop to get rid of hazards on my side, but I needed hazards set up on my opponent, and I got pretty lucky. I want to say I got pretty lucky in this sense. I really wanted Nidoqueen, and like almost before me, Kyle and the Mesquite Mesperits took Nidoking, and I almost had a heart attack. But fortunately, he took Nidoking, which means I got to take Nidoqueen, and that was like, yes, awesome. That's great. I love Nidoqueen in this format. It is, I think, again, my whole team, I feel, is very underrated so far when it comes to the threat level that they are. I feel like these Pokemon could easily be a tier above what they are. Bar Florges, kind of pissed about Florges, but we don't talk about Florges. I feel Nidoqueen is fantastic. Not only is it an amazing offensive Pokemon, the fact that it has access to rocks and toxic spikes means that it's an amazing hazard setter as well. Definitely puts pressure on my opponent, especially if my opponent doesn't have a solid way of removing hazards or doesn't have a poison type. Then toxic spikes can be a really solid strategy to use against my opponents a lot of the time, so that's definitely something I want to keep in mind. The other big thing though is the fact that Nidoqueen has two very good abilities for two very different situations. Sheer Force to be able to absolutely rip through teams whenever I want to. It may not be as strong as Nidoking, but on the flip side of that, because it has Poison Point as other ability, it can take a really solid defensive role. It is a fantastic stop to a lot of Volt Switches, as Hidden Power Ice to especially defensive Nidoqueen is not really doing that much, because like I said, Nidoqueen is bulkier than Nidoking, so I can take the hits a lot better and deal with them a lot better. And so I feel that Nidoqueen's going to be a really solid Pokemon for this season. It's definitely probably the most aggressive Pokemon that I've chosen so far, although it doesn't hit as hard as maybe a Tangrowth or a Cresselia. I definitely feel it has a lot more offensive capability, but I'm definitely digging the team so far. And so basically that was, so far, everything was looking pretty good, but it was starting to dawn on me that I didn't really have a tier 1 sorted. I didn't really have a kind of game plan going into these last few picks, and I'm like, okay, I need to think. These last 6 picks are very important, and my game plan was like, right, next 2 picks, I'm going to get Goodra and Staraptor. They're both fantastic what they do. They will be great. Literally, back to back, Johan and Misty took both of those away from me, and I'm there like, holy crap, my team is getting torn apart here. I was in dire straits, and this is where I kind of want to talk about when this happens to you, because, you know, everybody goes through these kind of situations, I think, where they're in a draft situation, they have a certain kind of plan they're going into it, and the plan gets blown to smithereens. So basically at this stage, the main issue for my team was my speed. I didn't have a Pokemon that was over base 100. I needed at least 2 Pokemon over base 110, I felt, to have decent speed tier. So I thought really quickly in my head, like, okay, what are 2 very fast Pokemon I can pick up and make it work? And I thought of 2, and I was like, okay, can I get a 3rd one in there, maybe just to make sure? And I got a 3rd one in there. I was like, okay, I've got a kind of game plan now. Let's see if we can, you know, actually execute this and see if it actually works. So heading into my next pick, I was trying to think of definitely tier 1 options was definitely something I was considering, because at this point I had taken, I think, 5 Pokemon. I had 6 to go. Let me just make sure I'm getting my maths right so I know that I did do the exact amount of picks that I'm about to say, because I feel like I'm forgetting one Pokemon right now, and it's gonna do my head in if I don't remember him before I start talking. Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm good now. So, heading into my next pick, I decided, you know what? Mega Aggron's not gonna happen. And it turned out I got sniped anyway by Dallas Starus. So I was like, fine, whatever. You know what I'm going to do? There were 2 Pokemon in Tier 1 that hadn't been taken yet. This is getting into round 6 and 7 when I took both of these Pokemon. And I feel for getting these round 6 and 7, I was pretty stoked. So the first one of those to start my Fire, Water, Grass Core and my Fairy Dragon Steel Core, I picked up Heatran. Now, to get Heatran round 6 is pretty insane. This thing, I feel, is underrated in a draft format because of its 4 times weakness. It seems very easy for opponents to be able to just chuck on, you know, an Earthquake or Hidden Tail Ground, Natural Gift Ground, and Heatran's dead. The thing is, you have to remember that I have a Cresselia and a Tangrowth. I have very easy coverage for basically anything that wants to hurt my Heatran. Almost perfect synergy just with those 3 in general. And so I feel just having that as a starting point is fantastic. Heatran itself, guys, it's another Stealth Rocker, so definitely helps out my Nidoqueen in that sense. The other really good thing about Heatran is it's just a very aggressive Pokemon as well. It can be incredibly defensive, but it can also be incredibly offensive. So again, it's another one of those Pokemon that you know that I love running all the time, an all-rounder kind of thing where it can show its defensive capabilities as well as showing its offensive capabilities, and I'm definitely excited to use Heatran. I think its array of moves is exceptional. Not only can it be a really solid rocker, it can run things like Torment and Taunt and, you know, all these really cool moves to shut down your opponent. It's not just all the same standard OU sets, and I think definitely Heatran is one of those Pokemon that can really show off its creativity to you guys throughout this season, but obviously you have to wait and see on that one. But I'm definitely excited to show you what Heatran can do. Then it came back around to me again, and this thing was still here, and I'm like, you know what, it's time to get my first of the... I needed at least 2 Pokemon over 110 speed, because you need a good amount of speed, and this guy was still here, and I'm like, you know, it's gonna have to do. My game plan was actually, after I got Nidoqueen, that I really wanted Cofagrigus, but it got taken straight away, and if I hadn't taken Nidoqueen, I would have lost Nidoqueen. So I made the choice that Nidoqueen to me was more important than Cofagrigus. So I decided to go with a different ghost type and decided to go with another tier 1, and so I picked up Gengar. Now, I don't have to tell you how good Gengar is. If you saw how Trev used it to the end of last season of the PMC, it is a monster. It hits incredibly hard. Ghost and Poison is a phenomenal combination, especially since now Ghost can go through Steel. It is basically... It's not unstoppable, but it's very, very hard to stop. It's a fantastic offensive Pokemon for my team, and you know, I've been going with a lot of all-rounders, but I needed something that was like dedicated to hit teams hard, and this thing will hit teams incredibly hard, and I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. Base 110 speed means that I can have something in that good speed tier. It has a fantastic array of moves, a lot of really cool fun sets that I'm looking forward to trying out on the Heatran. Oh, the Heatran, this is a Gengar I'm talking about, but definitely a lot of cool sets that I really want to try with this thing, because I feel it is a lot more diverse than people give it credit for, and I'm really excited to see what I can do with it, because again, it's a Pokemon I haven't really used that much, but I've seen a lot of other people use it, and it excites me that I get to use it. Plus, when I was going through my draft, I realized, shit, my team's really weak to Gengar. I might as well pick it up myself so I don't get weak to it, unless I go up against a guy with Ditto, but I don't think I battle Aki at all, so shouldn't be a big deal. But yeah, Gengar joins the team. So at this point, it was getting to the time where you can kind of realize I needed some more lower tier picks, and the next one I decided to go with was my tier 5. I only really needed one tier 5 with my entire draft, and I feel like this is probably the best tier 5 I could have got. Again, I feel it is very underrated. I actually used this thing in the GPC tournament, and people said that, you know, I used it quite well. It wasn't used conventionally. I definitely had to be very creative with it, and I feel this is the kind of Pokemon that can be very creative in the way that you use it. And so with my tier 5 pick, I decided to go with Lantern. So Lantern is a bit of a weird one. It's actually faster than people think. It actually naturally outspeeds M-Ball. Just saying, it naturally outspeeds a goddamn M-Ball. And that's really cool because it can be a very good offensive Pokemon. It might not have the best offensive stats, but it's got fantastic bulk, it's a fantastic pivot still with Volt Switch, and it's definitely got a lot of capabilities. It has Heal Bell, which means less pressure on my Florges to be able to do that. It also really helps things like my Cresselia out, which appreciate that. And because I can run this thing a lot more aggressively in this format, it's not just designed to be defensive, it means I'm not going to be as easily set up on by other Pokemon. I can easily, you know, have a way to deal with them. So I'm not feeling too worried about my Lantern being like set up on a lot. I think that I know how to, you know, play around people trying to do that, and I honestly feel like Lantern is going to be a very, very solid pick. And it's going to surprise a lot of people this season because Lantern is very, very underrated, I feel, for a water electric type, especially with the point that Lantern can have both Water Absorb and Volt Absorb. Now, Volt Absorb obviously absorbing electric moves, Water Absorb taking care of water type attacks. Now, that means that I can not only maybe choose, okay, my opponent has a Milotic or something, I'm just going to bring Lantern to basically absorb every single Scald that Milotic goes for, that's great. Or I say, hey, I'm not really feeling my Nidoqueen in this matchup, I'm just going to bring my Lantern instead, because I can eat up that Jolteon's Volt Switch like it's nothing. He can't set up a sub on me because I have enough special attack investment that even a full HP, full Split F Jolteon cannot keep it sub up consistently. That means I can shut it down before anything bad happens. So I definitely feel like I can use Lantern the right way because I've had a lot of practice with this thing now, and I'm really keen to use it in a draft-based format. So after that, guys, we only have 3 picks left in our draft, and I'm thinking, okay, this is starting to get together. There's only 3 last things I really need, and one of them I felt was Druddigon. The reason why I wanted Druddigon was because I was like, oh, you know, Rocks would be great, having another one, and then Lucky sniped it. Lucky once again, just finding ways to piss me off. But I was like, ah, damn it, okay, let's think. What do I need here for these last 3 picks? What else do I really need for my team to make things work? And I thought about it, and I thought about the last couple of mons that I was going with. I'm like, yeah, this is going to do fine. And so for my next pick, I actually decided to go down to tier 4. I could basically afford 2 tier 4s and then a tier 2 Mega from here. So that's the path I decided to go with, and I decided to pick up a Selgor. Now, a Selgor is a pretty cool mon. I have had experience using it. I actually used a Selgor in my championship winning team in the UBCs. This is the first time I've actually used a Selgor since winning a championship with it. A Selgor is fantastic. Obviously, base 145 speed is ridiculous. It basically means that I'm outspeeding most of the things my opponent brings, unless they've got, you know, Mega Alakazam or something stupid like that, or I think Mega Beedrill might also get close to outspeeding it. But it basically means that a lot of times I can actually just bring Modest to Selgor and still naturally outspeed a lot of my opponent's team, which is fantastic. It also is an amazing Spike Mon. It can set up hazards very nicely. It has things like Final Gambit, so I can set up hazards, and then as the spinner comes in maybe straight away, I can set up a layer of spikes and then go straight for the Final Gambit, which is really, really cool. I also feel that with my next pick, I can capitalize on these spikes being set up, and also what it really gave me was the fact that I had 2 Stealth Rockers in Heatran plus a Nidoqueen, Toxic Spikes on Nidoqueen, and then Spikes on a Selgor. So I was just missing out on webs, but I felt that I had basically all my hazards covered, and that was really good because against certain opponents that don't have a really solid way of doing hazard removal, I can definitely capitalize on them, and that's something I'm really looking forward to doing because I feel that I can definitely catch a lot of them off guard with the things that I'm planning. But a Selgor is a fantastic pick. It's incredibly versatile. It also hits very, very hard on the special side because of things like Acid Spray being able to weaken my opponent's defensive walls, and then a Selgor just coming in and blowing them away. So definitely excited to use a Selgor this season. I feel it's going to be a very, very solid mon for me, and it did me well in the UBC, so I can't see why it won't do me well this time again. But basically the main reason why I wanted a Selgor or Druddigon was to pair it with my next pick. So this guy I haven't actually used in a draft-based format, but I've always wanted to. I've seen other people use it really well, and that is Braviary. So the reason why I really want a Braviary is because America. No, it's because Defiant. Defiant was the main reason. For those of you who don't know, Defiant is basically the same thing that I love about Bishop. It's an ability where anytime you have a stat lowered your attack gets raised by 2 stages. So it's basically a free swords dance. And the main reason for it is because if my opponent has a defogger instead of a rapid spinner, because obviously I have a spin blocker in my Gengar, so if my opponent then decides to go for a defog, I can bring in my Braviary and get a +2 boost, which is fantastic because I can then run, like I'd say, a choice banded set, and then something's gonna freaking die. But the other cool thing about Braviary is I don't always have to run that kind of defined set. It also has Sheer Force, which means I can actually hit incredibly hard on my opponent's team with a Life Orb Braviary. Life Orb Sheer Force Braviary can absolutely decimate teams if you use the right movesets, so that's definitely another really cool option I feel for me heading into the season. But the main reason I have Braviary is it also has Defog, which means basically if I go up against somebody else trying to hazard attack on me and Hitmontop doesn't suit the matchup, I can bring Defog Braviary. It has natural bulk. Base 80 speed isn't ideal, but it's still faster than a lot of the teams I have in my division, a lot of other teams around there, like their average pace. So it is actually very solid for me, I feel, and I really like the versatility Braviary has from being a really solid attacker to also being a really solid like bulk up kind of passive mon. So I like those kind of combinations that it can do, and the big kicker is the fact that it has 2 phenomenal abilities that my opponent can't predict either way, because if you predict the Sheer Force and then get caught by the Defiant, you're in trouble, and vice versa. So definitely really like that. But we come to our last pick, guys, the final pick for the Tampa Bay Frogadiers in the 2nd season of the PMC, and this again was a Pokemon I hadn't actually used before, and I didn't initially think I was going to pick it. One thing I really wanted to pick from the start was Crawdon. I wanted to pick it so bad, but I decided against it. I decided to go with Lantern as my water type, which basically meant I needed a dark type, and I had a Selgor and Gengar that were both over base 110 speed, but I needed one more to definitely be over my base 110 speed, and one that could just punish a lot of my opponent's Pokemon, put a lot of pressure on a lot of my opponent's teams. And that Pokemon in the end was Absol, and not just Absol, Mega Absol. Mega Absol was the final pick for my draft, and I could not be happier. Mega Absol is an absolute monster of a Pokemon. So the fact that it can have Magic Bounce basically means that a lot of Ghost types that would initially wall this thing can't really wall it now because they can't Willow me. So that's phenomenal. I can basically set up in their face, which is great. I do love that. I have a monstrous attack set. I have a really nice speed set, as I said, base 115, so I can now speed base 110s, which is great. It benefits so much from spikes because that allows it to then be able to spam Sucker Punch and get kills. I can basically set up a Swords Dance and then go for game, which is really cool. I like that a lot. And I feel that it is just an incredibly solid Pokemon for the team that I have, because I had so many kind of defensive kind of pivots and whatnot, so being able to have those pivots that can get me into Absol is really cool. I really like it in general. I feel that it's a very underrated Pokemon again. Like, you kind of see people use it every now and then, but it's not used as much as it should be, and it is a terrifying Mega to go up against if you're not really prepared for it. And I feel like I have a lot of coverage for the things that can deal with it. For example, like bulky steel types can't really deal with Heatran plus Nidoqueen, so that's really nice. As well as, I guess you could say, fairy types. Again, I have Heatran and Nidoqueen, so basically the core, I feel the offensive core of Mega Absol, Heatran plus Nidoqueen is going to be very difficult for my opponents to deal with this season, combined with the whole rest of the bulk of my team. I feel that I have some really cool options this season. It's definitely a lot different to how I would normally draft, but this is what happens when you get sniped a lot. You have to really improvise, think on your feet, and I feel like I have. I basically have covered almost every typing. The one I didn't really cover was Dragon. So the reason for that, guys, and I'll kind of break it down. A lot of the dragons I wanted to pick were gone. I could have actually gone with taking, instead of Braviary plus a Solgor, I could have taken Swellow plus Tyrantrum, and the reason I went against that is because I feel I can do more with a Selgor, and I feel that Tyrantrum is not going to see as much play because, especially with Mega Absol being in the team, I feel that Mega Absol can do a lot of the same things that Tyrantrum can. Tyrantrum would have been great for rocks, but I also feel like Braviary would have been more important than Swellow, being able to punish those defoggers a lot more and have a lot more versatility, whereas Swellow pretty much just has like the Toxic Orb kind of set that's mainly its gimmick. So I definitely feel like, although I don't have a Dragon type, it shouldn't be too detrimental to my team, because Dragon types are great in general. But I feel that a lot of people will get fairy and steel types anyway, and basically the fairy and steel types now are more designed to deal with, like I said, my Mega Absol. So my Mega Absol is basically acting as the dragon for my team, and I'm kind of pairing it with a really good offensive, like 2 very good offensive Pokemon, and I feel that the entire team itself is it looks a bit ship-shapey, but I think now I'm going to be able to take the time to really think through the team, what it can do, and then when we get to our first battle of the season, I think the team will go well, but I am a bit of a slow starter. It takes me a week or so to really get the hang of my team and understand, you know, what I really want to bring and all that jazz, but I don't feel like I want to change anything in this team. It's very, very good. I was a little bit worried that it wasn't going to be as good as it is now, but I'm very, very happy with how it's turned out, and I'm very excited now for the season in general. I feel that the competition is going to be very, very intense. My division has Ociel or Dr. V, I have Kingdra Plays Games, and I have Choice CJ. CJ and I are very, very good friends, so that one's going to be intense. The other 2 guys, we're going to have to drop you on it next, I'm sorry, but I'm very excited. My first game will be against Twisted Misty. Of course, I played her last season. She is a great friend of mine. I am very much looking forward to that, and what you guys can expect in the future is me maybe doing a video discussing... I'm sorry that I keep scratching my nose. It's because I've actually, as you can see, been growing my beard out, and my moustache hairs are not controlling themselves, and it keeps brushing up against my nose, and it's just causing me to sniffle and whatnot. I can almost do like my moustache now, like in the curls. It's like it's fancy shit. It's fancy shit. But at the end of the day, guys, as I said, because I've wasted almost 40 minutes of your time here, I'm very happy with my draft. I feel it is very solid. I'm looking forward to the PMC Season 2. I think we have a very, very healthy competition. It is 12 rounds of absolute fun. I'm gonna get rid of that thing, thank you. And I am really, really excited. I feel that your Tampa Bay Frogadiers are going to be able to get the job done this season, and I'm feeling good about it. Honestly, it's very hard to expect anything when it's just teams on paper, but we have a pedigree in this league, and I want to be able to live up to the hype. So I'm going to go talk to TheVerd Incarnate about the team that I drafted for him. We'll see what he thinks, and he will be back announcing all of the Pokemon team names to you guys a little bit later on. But thank you guys so much for watching. Do be an absolute lad if you can, and like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and comment down below about the picks that you feel I did really well with, and maybe some picks, you know, looking back on the draft that maybe I could have got at different times that could have been better, and how you feel I'm going to go this season. But that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. My name is TheVerd, and I'm out this bitch.